Hi, my name is Schyler Church. I'm a California real estate broker as well as a member of the education department at Accredited Real Estate Schools. We provide the course requirements to be eligible to take the state exam, as well as varying levels of preparation so you're prepared to pass the state test. And today we're actually talking about that state exam and tips to help you pass it while you're actually taking the exam. So let's get into it. So this is just for when you're actually taking your real estate exam. I have another video though regarding preparation, so prior to taking the exam. Make sure to check that one out as well, but let's go into tips for the actual test day and what you could do to helpfully improve your chances of passing. And also know you can apply these tips to your other exams. So for instance, if you're going for your MLO endorsement, so the NMLS, Notary Public, Escrow Officer, Insurance, CPA, etc. So this is just a general tips and some specific tips that I think are great for this real estate exam, but also a bunch of other real estate exams that you can extrapolate these tips to. The first one, this is very generic. We have a few basic ones, but be well rested. Go to bed early. You want to make sure that you have all your faculties functioning at the best capacity. And then be comfortable. Food, water, clothing, make sure you eat. You're hydrated. Will the testing site be warm or cold? Take that into consideration. You don't want to be distracted by because you're hungry or you're thirsty or you are cold or warm. So make sure to think about those elements prior, as well as use the restroom ahead of time. Don't waste valuable exam time. So make sure to do that prior to actually taking the exam. And breathe and relax. Remember, nerves and anxiety can hinder your performance. This is definitely easier said than done, but if you can, try to calm yourself and breathe, relax, and know it's not the end of the world. You can do this. Just take it one question at a time. And also, if they provide scratch paper, which for the California real estate license exam, they do. So take advantage of it. They actually give you a whiteboard, and this whiteboard can be used to make notes. You can also do, so for instance, what I recommend is usually if there's certain elements or items that you're not sure of all the time or you easily forget, write that down when you first get there. Or I like to categorize questions. So if I have a question that I feel maybe 50-50 on, and I really don't know which one's the better answer, I'll have a category for that. Questions where I'm 50-50 on and I believe I picked the better answer, then I put those questions there. Or ones that I truthfully am not sure of the answer. And so that way I can kind of know where to put my priority and how well I'm doing with questions. But for the state exam of California for real estate, these exams are weighted, so you can't just say, I just need to get a straight 70 or 75% across the board. But it does give you an idea of maybe which questions that you do want to put a higher emphasis on of going back to and taking a look at. Then here's something that you might not have heard of, but to skip the first few questions. So sometimes the hardest questions are in the beginning to frazzle the examinee. All versions are different, but for instance, on my broker's state exam that I took, the first question was a few paragraphs long regarding this legal excerpt of a law. And I had no idea what it was saying. And I kind of heard this in the grapevine a long time ago that, hey, skip the first 10 questions and go back to them at the end. And you know what? I looked at the first few lines of that question and went, I'm just going to skip it. I kind of thought this was a joke to skip the first 10 questions, but truthfully, I am a heavy believer in it. So I did that. It helped me a lot, and I went back to it at the end. A lot of times, these hard questions, too, in the beginning are sometimes like some newer concepts that might not be worth much. So we don't want you to get frazzled, and that will then impede and affect your answering of the other questions. So here's something to think of. You don't need to skip the first few questions, but here's a recommendation. Carefully read the question and answer options and make sure to reread them. So fully understand the question before answering. Reread it a few times if needed. And then make sure to read all the answer options. You may think right away, oh, this is the best answer by looking at maybe answer option A, but it could be a good answer, but there might even be a better answer. So make sure to read all the answer options carefully. And also, another thing that you may have not thought of, but once you read the question and you understand what the question's asking, try to formulate an answer prior to reading the answer options. So read the question, and before looking at any of the answer options, dissect the question and formulate your own answer. So for instance, if the question has something to do with, let's say, a fee simple estate, something simple like that. Well, you might want to be coming up with, what do you think about everything you know about fee simple estates and what the question's asking of it and what you believe to be the correct answer. So before even looking at the answer options, you kind of have an idea, and that will help you weed through the options. Also, pace yourself. Do not rush. It is easy to miss keywords when rushing or going too fast. So you want to make sure you understand the question, what it's asking, and that you really understand the answer option, because maybe one word will change what it's actually saying, and then it might not be a correct answer. So really make sure to take your time, pace yourself, and keep track of the time. So you don't want to go too slow, but you also don't want to go too fast. Track the time, make sure you leave enough time to answer all the questions. And have blinders to distractions. So focus on your exam only. Don't worry if others finish before you. Especially for the exam in California for real estate, you have it to where everybody in the room is most likely going to have a different version than you. Some might be easier, some might be very, very difficult. They're all challenging, but they have their own difficulty level. And so some students may have an easier one, so that's why they may finish before you. Also, some students may have not realized what they got themselves into and just gave up. So they may have only done half the questions and then just submitted it and didn't want to try for the rest. So don't worry about what other people are doing, especially too, some students also, examinees, they may have checked in a lot earlier than you, so they may have gotten started anywhere to maybe 20, 30 minutes before you. So just focus on your exam and track the time, pace yourself, and worry about your exam only. Also, skip questions if you are stuck. So don't spend too much time on one question. Return to them later, because remember, these questions are weighted. So you might be stuck on a question, but truthfully, it might not be worth that much. So you don't want to hinder the other questions that you may be able to spend more time on, that you know, or you understand you have a better chance on, that might be worth more anyway. So skip questions if you're stuck and come back to them later. And also, because we've talked about skipping questions, make sure to verify that all questions were answered. So before submitting the exam, go over the questions and make sure that every single question was answered. Even if you don't know a question, it's still better to mark it, especially for this exam. They don't decrease your score by answering a question wrong, for instance. So it's best to at least give yourself an option or a chance of maybe getting it correct. So make sure all the questions were answered. And these are just some tips for you. They're ones that I use, I swear by, I believe in and use myself for when I did my salesperson, my broker's exam, and also for a bunch of other exams through my college career, and also for my other licensing exams that I've taken as I'm a broker in Hawaii and Florida as well. So I like these tips. You feel free to pick and choose which ones you want and add to it. This is just a starting point for you. And if you're wanting tips regarding actually preparing for the exam, make sure to check out my video that I have for studying. This is just test taking tips. But if you don't pass the state exam, realize it's not the end of the world. You're able to then recognize your problem areas, learn from it, and you can then go ace it the next time. So if you don't pass the state exam in California, they'll give you a breakdown of the 7 areas, and it'll give you a great idea of really where your strengths and weaknesses are. So it's not the end of the world. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please let us know. Feel free to contact us at Accredited, but good luck with your real estate license exam or any other exam you may be taking.